Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle was warned, not by man, but by something unseen. And what he saw in the shadows of the Sistine Chapel shook his soul to the core. Behind closed doors, before the white smoke ever rose, before the world ever uttered the name Pope Leo XIV, God spoke. It began with silence, profound, haunting, holy. As the cardinals gathered beneath the painted heavens of Michelangelo's masterpiece, there was a weight in the air no incense could lift. The conclave was about to begin, and with it, the most sacred task on earth, to call forth the next vicar of Christ. But something else had arrived first, something ancient, something divine. Cardinal Tagle stood apart from the others, not in arrogance, in reverence. He had prayed the night before with an urgency that woke him trembling at dawn. A whisper had come to him, not in a dream, not in a voice, but in a presence. It surrounded him in his cell at Domus Sanctae Marthae. The crucifix above his bed had swayed without wind, and a tear, only one, fell from the eye of a nearby statue of the Virgin. He felt it. He knew it. He would be warned. The moment came as he crossed the threshold into the Sistine Chapel. His eyes met the Last Judgment on the far wall, and for a breathless instant, the figure of Christ moved, not in gesture, not in pose, but in gaze. The eyes of the judge locked with his. A thunderclap of the soul followed, and in that moment, Cardinal Tagle heard 7 words that would never be spoken aloud. He is chosen. You must not resist. He staggered. A fellow cardinal reached out, thinking him faint. But Tagle's composure returned. He said nothing. Not yet. But something inside had changed. Hours later, seated beside Cardinal Robert Prevost, quiet, unassuming, and yet deeply attuned, Tagle leaned close and whispered something that caused Prevost's eyes to glisten. We do not know the exact words, but witnesses say the two remained locked in prayer long after the others had cast their ballots. That was before the first black smoke, but not before the first sign. A woman standing in St. Peter's Square, watching the chimney collapsed into sobs, she cried out, "I saw him kneeling in fire. I saw angels behind him and one had no face." She was taken away by medics, but a priest who heard her words later confirmed that her vision echoed a private prophecy given to a mystic in Argentina in 1972, one that spoke of a cardinal of mercy who would carry fire to the next pope's soul. That fire was igniting. As the ballots narrowed in the days that followed, something unexpected happened. Cardinal Prevost, humble, prayerful, and not widely viewed as a frontrunner, began receiving more and more votes. And each time his name was read aloud, Tagle's eyes would close, his lips moving in silent prayer. One cardinal noticed and asked, "Do you support him?" Tagle's response, "I submit to God's voice, not my own." Then came the final night. It was the eve of the last vote. A storm had gathered over Rome. Lightning danced across the Tiber. In the Vatican, the lights flickered, and deep within the chapel, Cardinal Tagle was seen kneeling again, this time beneath the depiction of Christ, separating the sheep from the goats. He remained there for 40 minutes. When he returned to his seat, he placed a sealed envelope on Cardinal Prevost's chair. Inside was a message, handwritten, trembling ink, a line from Isaiah. "Behold, my servant shall act wisely. He shall be high and lifted up, and shall be exalted." Prevost opened it only after the smoke turned white. Pope Leo XIV was born in silence, but heaven was not done speaking. As he stepped onto the balcony, the crowd roaring, cameras flashing, it is said that Cardinal Tagle did not cheer. He wept. A Vatican aide caught a glimpse of him in a shadowed corner of the Apostolic Palace. His rosary was wrapped so tightly around his hand it left marks. He whispered, "He will suffer, but he is God's man." And then something happened. dove descended, not from above the basilica, but from behind the crowd, gliding silently through the smoke. It landed on the cross atop the papal banner behind Pope Leo XIV. The people gasped. Some cheered. Others wept. The Holy Father himself bowed his head, and the cameras captured it. A single tear. In his first homily, Pope Leo XIV did not speak of himself. He spoke of mercy, fire, and the need to listen to the voice of the Spirit. Not tradition alone, not innovation alone, but truth. He thanked a brother who saw before I could, and said, "The Church stands now at the shore of her Red Sea. We will either walk through by faith or be swallowed by fear." And then he named him Cardinal Louis Tagle, a prophet among each us. The words echoed, but they had already been confirmed. 2 days later, Pope Leo XIV appointed Tagle to the very post he himself once held, Cardinal Bishop of Albano, a gesture that was more than political. It was spiritual. It was prophetic. But deeper still are the murmurs now emerging. A private source inside the Vatican claims a sealed document was delivered to Pope Leo XIV hours before his announcement. A text recovered from the archives during the Sede Vacante. It bore the signature of Pope Pius XIV and contained a line long considered apocryphal. "He will rise not from Europe, but will be raised by one who has seen the fire. The witness will not reign, but will anoint. And heaven will echo the anointing, the witness. Not the Pope, not the crowned, but the one who sees the fire before it falls." That was Tagle, and now the factions move. Some call this new partnership divinely orchestrated. Others warn it is the beginning of the schism. Inside the Vatican, quiet battles unfold. Documents are sealed. Meetings held at midnight. One cardinal has not spoken publicly in weeks. Another was heard saying, "If this is the voice of God, let him speak clearly, or not at all." But he has spoken. Through signs, through whispers, through chosen servants who did not seek thrones but bore burdens. And now we are left watching, trembling, discerning, because prophecy is not done. And the bride of Christ stands at the edge of something terrible and holy. The Vatican now glows with uneasy light. Day by day, decisions are being made that cannot be undone. And at the center of it all, Pope Leo XIV and Cardinal Tagle walk quietly, but not without fire. They are not just men. They are instruments, and those who dwell in darkness know it. Rumors now swirl that within the Apostolic Palace, a second conclave may have begun. Not of ballots, but of spirits. A war of whispers between those who seek to preserve the old and those who hear the thunder of the new. Some cardinals refuse to speak Tagle's name. Others bless it in silence. But beneath the marble floors, something ancient stirs. An echo from the days of Constantine, when Rome was not just a city, but a throne of war between light and shadow. On the third day after his election, Pope Leo XIV called for a closed meeting in the Domus Sanctae Marthae. Only 12 cardinals were invited. The number was deliberate, apostolic, prophetic. No one knows all that was said, but one phrase was leaked from a recorder left active by accident. The bride must walk through blood before she is clothed in light. The purification has already begun, not by sword, but by flame. That line spread like wildfire among the clergy. A bishop from South America resigned the next day without explanation. A high-ranking Vatican official disappeared for 6 hours and emerged pale, crossing himself repeatedly. In the Philippines, where Tagle's name is now whispered like a relic, statues have begun bleeding again, one of which was filmed crying not tears, but oil. Heaven is not silent, and neither is hell. Reports have now surfaced of secret meetings, unauthorized gatherings of high-ranking clergy opposed to Leo's vision. They call themselves Custodes Fidei, guardians of the faith. But their faith is not in the gospel. It is in power. in control, in the silence that hides sin. They believe the fire now moving through the church is dangerous, and they are right, because the fire is divine and it cannot be controlled. Even now, Pope Leo XIV is reportedly reviewing sealed documents hidden beneath the Vatican library. These were uncovered accidentally during earthquake reinforcements. One labeled Ecclesiae Flamma, the flame of the church. Inside, among faded Latin and ancient wax, a letter allegedly penned by a mystic nun in the 1800s reads, "The church shall know 2 popes in succession, yet only one shall reign in spirit. He will be led by the one who carries sorrow in his bones. That man shall not take the keys, but shall guard the door. He will be the forerunner of the burning bride. The sorrow in his bones. That is Tagle. He has become more than a cardinal. He is now seen by some as the voice in the wilderness, the Elijah to a generation of exiles. He has rejected offers to lead major dicasteries, opting instead to remain close to the people. He is said to have begun weekly visits to the sick and to victims of clerical abuse, often weeping with them. One witness said she saw him kiss the feet of a young man abandoned by his parish. Another said she heard him say, "If I must suffer so the church may shine, let it be done." And still, the attacks rise. Articles appear in anonymous journals, questioning his mysticism. A forged letter circulates claiming he seeks to divide the church. But each lie falls like ash, because even his enemies, especially his enemies, cannot deny the anointing upon him. One cardinal reportedly had a vision during Eucharistic adoration. Tagle standing alone in St. Peter's, holding up the shattered bones of saints, surrounded by fire. But the fire did not consume him. It crowned him. Around him stood 2 pillars, one crumbled, the other burning with light. Now listen closely. In Jerusalem, a priest unearthed a parchment beneath the Temple Mount, one historians now believe was smuggled from Antioch in the 1st century. Its contents? A prophecy attributed to an unnamed apostle. It reads, "In the latter days, the church shall be struck from within. The man not crowned shall be the vessel. He will weep. He will warn. And the crowned one shall listen. Together they shall prepare the bride for the wedding. Not crowned, but chosen. And then, on the feast of Saints Peter and Paul, a cosmic sign." At precisely 3:33 p.m., lightning struck the obelisk in St. Peter's Square. Without storm, the Vatican's power grid flickered. A bell in the Apostolic Palace rang 3 times, though no hand had touched it. At that moment, Leo XIV was in silent prayer before the Eucharist. Tagle was beside him. Both reportedly heard a voice, not external, but interior, thunderous, calm, and full of sorrow. For it said, "You have seen the storm. Now be the voice in it." Afterward, Leo stood and declared, "Prepare the church. The time is short. The hour is holy, and the fire is coming." Since then, rumors have intensified. A coming declaration, warning to the church, a heavenly message confirmed by signs. And through it all, Cardinal Tagle remains unshaken, his eyes heavy, but his heart aflame. He is no longer a man of ambition, if he ever was. He is a man of destiny, because what began as a whisper in the Sistine Chapel is now the roar of heaven echoing through the Vatican walls. And the bride of Christ. She is trembling, yes, but she is also rising, and the fire that once threatened to consume her is now illuminating her crown. The Vatican no longer breathes in peace. Its silence is pregnant, with secrets, with fear, with the weight of something eternal pressing down on its ancient stones. The marble corridors echo not just with footsteps, but with footsteps of those unseen. The clash of powers is no longer theoretical. It has arrived. 2 forces move now. one above, one below, one dressed in robes of humility, bathed in light, speaking truth even in whispers, the other cloaked in legacy, power, prestige, and darkness, holding tightly to the systems that once served the saints, now serving only themselves. At the heart of this battle, Cardinal Tagle, a man who never asked for power, yet who was chosen by prophecy to carry a flame no man can extinguish. And beside him, Pope Leo XIV, the shepherd crowned by votes, but anointed by heaven through the tears of a brother who saw first. They walk together, but the road they walk is lined with daggers. A newly leaked dossier from within the congregation for the doctrine of the faith has shocked insiders. A blacklist of voices believed to be prophetically dangerous. Tagle's name was first, not for heresy, not for doctrine, but for influence, for being too holy to control. Meanwhile, in Germany, a church roof collapses during Mass, injuring none. But when the dust settles, a mural long hidden by plaster is revealed. Its image, a shepherd handing a burning scroll to a kneeling man in red robes. On the scroll, a Latin phrase, Qui audit, vive. He who listens shall live. The message is spreading. God is calling his remnant. Tagle, under pressure, is reported to have declined 3 powerful roles in Vatican governance. He told the Holy Father privately, "If I must serve, let me serve on my knees, not with title, but with tears." But Leo XIV insisted. He gave him a role not of command, but of witness. Tagle is now protector of the bride, a new title never before granted. Its meaning, unknown. Its origin, ancient. The Pope said only, "You will prepare her for the fire." And then came the miracle of the unveiling. During a routine restoration, in the underground chapel of St. John Lateran, a veil behind the altar was lifted, hidden behind it. A wooden triptych sealed in wax. Historians date it to the early 4th century. Inside, an image of a woman clothed in fire, standing on the sea, holding a crucifix, and behind her, 2 men, one with a crown, one without. Between them, a sword made of light. The inscription, "One shall lead, one shall burn. The bride shall pass between them." It was unsigned, but beneath it, carved faintly, "Ecclesia purificanda." The church must be purified. The room reportedly filled with the scent of roses. One cardinal fainted, another knelt for hours, unable to speak, but the message was clear. The purification of the bride is not optional, it is ordained. The secret factions, those embedded deep in the Vatican who cling to their power, have grown desperate. Whispers of a new doctrine are circulating, one meant to dilute tradition under the guise of unity. They plan a secret council, but heaven has already planned a reckoning, because prophecy cannot be voted down, and fire cannot be cancelled. Tagle continues to move in prayer, in silence, but in power. Young priests seek him out. The laity flock to his homilies, and even the cynical now admit, when he speaks, something eternal stirs. A journalist once asked him off record, "Do you think you'll be Pope?" He only smiled and said, "I think the next throne is not marble, it is the cross." But heaven has a twist, because while the world focused on conclaves and collars, a storm was brewing beneath Jerusalem. Archaeologists uncovered a sealed chamber near the Mount of Olives. Inside, an urn marked by early Christian symbols, untouched for nearly 2,000 years. Inside the urn, 3 fragments of parchment. The last was damaged, but decipherable. Written in Aramaic, the final line reads, "The voice will come not from the mountain, but from the sea. The fisherman will anoint him, the fire will prepare the bride, and then the Spirit will descend in flesh." Scholars are stunned. The timing, impeccable. The implications, divine, and then came the final twist. In a move no one expected, Pope Leo XIV stood before a global audience on the Feast of the Assumption. Instead of a blessing, he made a declaration. He spoke not from script. He spoke in tongues, not chaotic speech, but clear Aramaic, a language he did not know. The translation: "The bride is mine. She is not divided. She will be washed in flame, and she will shine. The shepherd who weeps has seen. The one who listens will guide. And my spirit shall walk again, not beside, but within." The world froze. And then, the impossible happened. Every crucifix in the basilica began to glow, brilliant white. A dove descended again, landing, not on the Pope, but on Cardinal Tagle's shoulder. He wept, and then he fell to his knees. The Pope stepped back. The cameras caught it. Leo XIV removing his ring, not in abdication, but in submission. He took Tagle's hand and kissed it, and then he said, "He was warned first, because he is the first flame. I am not the final Pope. I am the one who opened the gate." Silence, then thunder, then weeping, because what no one expected was that the Pope himself would name not a successor, but a witness. A man not to be crowned, but ignited. Cardinal Tagle is not just a servant now. He is the forerunner of the fire. And the bride of Christ? She is not trembling anymore. She is rising, cloaked in flame, crowned in prophecy, and prepared, finally, for the return of the bridegroom. Because the voice has spoken. Because the Spirit is here. Because the fire is no longer coming. It has come. Amen.